Mm-hmm.
Uh, Welcome to this new podcast. The topic I've been speaking to people on is death. Thank you for taking the time and joining me. Uh, my first question to you is: how do you see death as a concept or as your personal experience in terms of knowing people who are no more or people close to you?
Mm, I think that is one, I think an inevitability that I never realized that one should, accept it. But uh, for some reason, we always seem to celebrate life but avoid thinking of death. And that death was inevitable. The moment we are born, then the next thing that is certain is we are going to die. In fact, every one of us is going to die. So, if anything, I can reflect on what I've learned from the people who have passed away close to me. I think I would have probably spent a little more time with them and probably cherished the time you spent, because death is so uncertain and it just comes so sudden that I think that's what that means to me. The sorrow aspect is there, but more seeing the situation today in the world, I think it would just be to use the time with whom you value. And that's what that is mean to me. Because it's inevitable. There's no point in not thinking about it or avoiding talking about it, but to celebrate life so that when death eventually comes, you can say, yes, zindagi jiya hai and we have lived a full life. We have given our best. I think that's what that means to me now.
Mm, okay. If I were to just look at the issue from another angle, where the last 1.5 years notwithstanding, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they are just more dramatic in the sense of the number of people one hears ailing or passing away, uh, different age groups. So there is a certain sense of drama, there is a certain sense of unbelievability to the whole thing. It actually, I keep telling a couple of friends that it looks like a bad Hollywood movie, and we are all in it as of right now. But I'm saying once we get out of that mindset, suppose this 1.5 years wouldn't have happened. Before that, also, death had the same power over us. If I, there was a certain sense of finality to how it was democratic in choosing any of us at any point of time, and we couldn't do anything about it. So, my question to you again is, if not for the present time, would you have still been seeing it in the way that you do right now, or how has the present circumstance changed your view, or made you think a little more? Or what are you like practically changing in yourself or doing to acknowledge that you've understood?
I think there are two aspects to this question. One is what is happening to us as a bad Hollywood movie. Actually, it's not true.
Okay.
And the reason is very simple. We neglected many things, and it so happens that those neglects have just caught up with us. Whether it's a public health system, lack of sanitation,
Yeah.
lack of political leadership, or whatever the reason, we had a heads up in India, and we took it too lightly, and now so I can't say it is unfair. In fact, nature gave us a very good heads up. Most countries didn't pay attention to it. So, in that respect, I am not surprised or stunned or.
Okay. Yeah. Point taken. Point taken. Valid.
Yeah. The second thing is the death around us. Yes. Now, that is something that I think, because the numbers are huge. Every day you're seeing huge numbers of people dying. But if one were to open our eyes and look around our surroundings even before COVID. There would be a lot of dead bodies moving around the street at least once a week in somewhere or the other, and we would just avoid looking at that procession or that house or that friend, or just kind of just shut it out of our mind because it's too uncomfortable to think.
Mm.
And just the thought of death is uncomfortable. And today, I think that discomfort is so much in our face that there are only two responses to it. Either we, get worried, stressed, and get despondent about it, or look at it as, okay, this is something that was inevitable and it happened gradually in our society, and now it's happening in large numbers. But other than that, our life as such is still going on in the way we choose to respond to it. So if we try to make the best of our relationships and our time with the people, then this life has some meaning. Otherwise, you would have lived, I would call an autopilot, and you would live to 80 or 90. I'm not sure that extra 30, 40 years what we lived really made much difference to us or to others. So I think what you make of the time we have is probably more valuable than worrying about the inevitability or uncertainty. So that's what I think this is. I don't know if that lesson has caught up with everybody. I don't know how I would respond if cold were to get over next month. And then would I get back to my usual behavior 6 months from now? Can't say, but yeah, that kind of reflection and accepting that life is actually very fragile and it can end at any time. So what is really important and what we are stressing about, are they really really important? And most often than not, the answer would be no.
Is there a sense of dread also part of the whole thing? Considering that, I think my understanding of many years of curiosity about death per se, I felt that in our minds we don't tend to grow up. Even if you were to talk to an old person and they're talking, and it's a mind state of a child more or less when it comes to death, because you don't want to be seeming, oh, I am ready for it and it can happen to me at this point of time, it's all right. I've seen, even as a kid, I've seen a neighboring lady who was suffering from some problem, and she said, oh, I'm dying. And she called her whole extended family. There were at least 30 people in that room for the entire day. Morning to I think 11 in the night. They also got her favorite ice cream or something, kulfi she used to like, and they got it for her thinking that this is the last she's going to have it, whatever. But she didn't pass away, and I saw her being the same person even after that entire day spent in actual dread. So my question is actually two-pronged. Do you personally feel a sense of dread? If yes, why? If no, why not? And if this exists, so what is your personal antidote to it?
Okay, about dread, I think it used to be there at one point in time. But after I lost my son, I don't think the dread, it's like I've been through one unclosed death. So I've seen the dread that comes when you're anticipating the death and that happens. And then you grieve and and then you accept that this is part of life. So now dread isn't there actually. I don't know if I am very attached to anybody that their death would affect me as much.
Okay.
So two people whom I was very attached to was my grandmother. She passed away after a long life and got old and died a natural death, and then my child. So seeing both of these, now the rest of the society, my own life, my own death doesn't fill me with dread at all. I just accepted that, okay, it's coming whenever it comes, you just go. Antidote, like I said, like at the beginning of our conversation, it is to whatever you're living, see it in the perspective of this matter. If the greatest thing that is there is death, then if somebody close to you dies or somebody is dead, would this, whatever we are worrying about, is it more comparable to that or less? And even death has so many ways. Today I was feeling those who have died before COVID are fortunate. At least they died a dignified death and the family could give them a decent burial. And so today, you see, even death has its variations. It's not like death is just one uniform thing. The circumstances the person dies, how the family can, cope up with the cremation and the aftermath. They're very different before and now and maybe later on. So, that is one aspect of it. Another aspect is life itself. When I think about it, we are actually very selfish. We don't want a person to die who is productive, who is healthy, or who is young. We seem to be ready to accept somebody's death when they're very old, when they're not productive, and they're a burden to take care of. So our attachment to life itself is not very, what do I say, honest or innocent. There's a lot of selfish motives, why we want certain people to live. And after which point that same very person, we are willing to wait for them to die and pass away because the person becomes a burden financially or emotionally. So there is this whole life thing. It's a good thing to introspect in. Why is it that we are so attached to it? And why is it that we are willing to let someone die?
Yeah, that's a beautiful realization. I have never thought about the economic aspect of it, and looking back, people who are ailing for many years or people who are old, one does tend to look at them as uh, quote unquote useless. And when I say useless, I mean if I want to have a good time, I want to call friends over, I want to go somewhere, I want to go vacationing or any kind of good things that I want to plan for myself, shopping or whatever. There is always a hindrance with a person like that attached to you in terms of responsibility. But I always uh, saw it as a smaller selfish interest of wanting to have a good time at that point of time. You have really given it a context that, really speaking, they are not productive in a manner that we can quantify in our minds. Even a person working only at home and doing household work, male or female, uh, does have a certain sense of utility for us in terms of getting our food on the table and uh, general everyday affairs. So yeah, it's something I would want to contemplate on how we see it. So a question that I want to ask, which is not in tune with the conversation so far, for no reason, a story came to mind. There was this connect connection to laughing Buddha as a theme. There was a Zen monk who was always laughing and happy all the time, um, and people kept wondering how he could be so happy when there was so much misery all around him. And but he was always joking, laughing. So there obviously came a time when he passed away, and they all kind of said, "Finally, he is quiet, and there is no sense of laughter or joy about this." So the truth is that life is morose and miserable. When they were lighting his fire, um suddenly there were crackers bursting everywhere because he had tied himself up with crackers, and people burst out laughing even as if he was alive. So it was his last practical joke on the world. And it as a inquisitive seeker for many years, I found it was a very interesting way to look at life itself, taking it a little easily. Do you think there is merit in in being a little easygoing about this whole holding on to any idea of life. I'm not saying that we have to become monks or something, because finally we are all fighting for happiness.
Yes, there is a need to be light, but one can be light only when one doesn't take oneself too seriously or one's happiness. Like the example you mentioned, you want to go out and enjoy and all that. I think the reason why we are so distant from that is because we are not going through the process of seeing a person being born, getting old, sick, and dying, and we taking care of them. I think that taking care part is missing in our society to a large extent. And in our work, we also don't engage in that kind of activity. So if you actually had to visit old age homes or visit sick people and volunteer or take care of them frequently, you will see that more regularly. And then you learn to accept that yes, this taking care part also can be done in a light-hearted, easy manner. Yes, there is a time when I could go to a movie or a vacation, but that time has changed and now this is a time where I have to be a caregiver. And can I give that care without feeling down or angry or depressed that I can't do these other things? All of that will come when we feel whatever we are doing is actually giving happiness and comfort to us and to the others. When we can do that, I think then we can be light. But if we are seeking happiness only from an external input or a stimulus, then we're going to take it seriously. We're going to take life very seriously because everything we're going to do will be to get that external stimulus, whether it's money or an experience, a holiday, whatever. So when the source of our happiness is inside, and when we can get happiness by giving happiness, I think
beautiful. It's quite a practical way to go about it. One question that comes to mind, which is again not connected to the conversation that we've been having so far, but there is a certain correlation to it. If I were to see death as a concept being things are changing, something is breaking the chain. So I don't know who was speaking to me, and say for example I buy a nice crockery set and I've got 6 mugs, and inevitably at some point either the maid or my wife or my mother or myself, something or somebody, or maybe just a gust of wind may blow it off the window and suddenly it might just fall and my set is broken and my heart is broken. And I was talking to somebody about attachment to cars, and people fight, and I have known of people dying due to getting a sudden cardiac arrest because their car has been scratched or they've had an accident, and they are so busy fighting that they don't realize that their bodies have reached a certain sense of nowhere to go anymore. And when one thinks of these things, and is that a concept that needs to be internalized with everyday small practices of there was a monk who had used the word unsure. He says whatever idea you have about anything, just add unsure to it so that you are able to balance it out in case it doesn't work out the way you're looking. So would you think because of our attachment to this idea of I want to go for a movie, I want to succeed in my career, I want to become the prime minister of this country or something, whatever expectations we have and we are moving towards it, but if one is able to inherently embed a sense of quote unquote death, that this may not stay the way I want, is there any way to look at it in that manner?
Two things. I think you have to accept that it will not stay in the way you want it.
Oh, okay. But it might.
So it will not stay. Even in the best of situations, this person whom you like or this job that you like will keep changing and it will keep evolving and it will go in a direction that is not the direction that you thought about. Okay. So that is something one has to accept. And if If one doesn't have preconceived notions, it's easier because you never expected anything in the first place. But if you do have, then you should be ready that it might not happen that way. Secondly, about death itself, I mean, it would be easier if I asked you, okay, you were going in a bus and you sat next to somebody and you had a great conversation and that person got down in the next stop or the stop after. How do you feel about that incident? Do you feel sad?
I think there is a sense of you want it to continue because it was so much fun, but there is also a rational way to look at things that this could not have happened because obviously his stop had come or my stop had come, so one of us had to get down.
Absolutely. There is no attachment to the person. From the very beginning, we are getting into that situation, knowing full well, I don't know who's going to be sitting there, maybe nobody sitting next to me, and whoever comes may not be a good conversationalist. But it so happened we strike the rapport, we exchange some views, and it was a great thing. And his stop came or her stop came, they got down. And then when our stop comes, we get down. And I think that is the metaphor of death or life journey, that this person's time had come to get down and they got down. And so that journey was always like that. It's never written that both of you would get on in the same stop and travel for 80 years and get off at the same stop. So once you look at things like that, then you realize, okay, this time is over for this particular person.
A technical problem with this kind of thing, just to put forward a different point of view. See, when there is a journey involved of a day or 2 or 5 days, it's easier to retain this kind of perspective. And when the journey runs into a certain kind of habit, be it marriage or a job, a fixed government job when our parents used to work used to be something like this. So they went into this whole idea of that they could never lose their jobs, and it went on for 30 years, 40 years, whatever amount of time. So how is it possible to have this perspective that it will not stay as it is? Is there a formula? Is there a way to look at things which is different? How does one convince oneself? Because the sense of continuity is on a daily basis. I get up, I get ready, I pick up my tiffin box, I go to my job, I do what I do on a daily basis. I come back at the same time, I have the same friends, I have the same chai or whatever. So there is a fixed routine that we give to things sometimes. How does one see that it may not stay? And is it not so depressing?
No, first it's empowering. Empowering because we are not sticking on to an idea that I will be with this company for 30 years or I will be with this person for 30, 40 years because, the company could change or they could fire me, I could leave, the company could get into problems, whatever. And this person could get sick, I could get sick. And there are two things. One is to engage with society more. I feel the reason why people are so shocked about the situation in our society is because we have not been engaging with it enough. We live in our own cocoons. We've not volunteered at different places and actually seen suffering, death, to realize that yes, this is occurring regularly. And if you actually kept your eyes open and read about, we've had 2 or 3 recessions in the world right now, huge number of job losses since year 2000. How could one not know that jobs were changing? If we don't want to look at what we call bad news, whether it is illness or death or unemployment or fraud in companies and sudden layoffs, so you can at some level, relate to your own experiences. Hey, that could have been me. I could have been in that company. Then what would I have done? At least you could have gone through this thought experiment, and that would give you some material to start making changes in your life. So that I think is something that people have to do. They have to engage with society. And if you want to go back to that enjoying lifestyle where I'm going to shut out all negativity, or all things that are happening which seem not good, then eventually again we'll come to face those situations.
Hmm. Okay, I had a question. I also have an answer for that, but I would want to know what are your thoughts on that. Um, this is beautiful because you're giving practical examples of how one can interact with the concept of uh, death of ideas or concepts or even one's own self or others. So my question to you is, when one engages in the manner that you've spoken, it's possible only when one is healthy and one is in a good situation where one can actually go and do it. But suppose somebody is bedridden and cannot go and engage more and is already caught up in the trials and tribulations of their own body, their own minds. In such a situation, uh, what could a person like that do? Uh,
I think when we are bedridden and we don't have the ability to go out and engage with society, I think a couple of things that can actually help the individual. And one is that accepting that this is a body that is decaying and degenerating. One has to just accept it, that even if there was a medicine to cure me, I would still be aging. I would be able to walk around, but I would still be aging. I would still be having disease. And this is inevitable, that this body will decay, it will disintegrate, and it will pass away. What I can do as an individual is to not get worked up with every pain, every misery or every illness that shows up and make it a bigger pain. There's a physical pain, and then we add on the mental pain to multiply it manifold. If we can look at life as, okay, I've lived the life I have to live, and now this body is giving away, I'll just accept that the body is giving away and try to be as happy as possible in my circumstance, and still look to find certain aspects in life where I can find happiness, maybe listen to good music or watch some movies that are funny or that give me happiness, to read some books or have conversations with people, if that's possible. And if nothing is possible, if I'm not in a space where I can even talk, then I could probably just observe my breath and just be calm during the day. And whatever I can taste, I cherish that taste. Whatever I can smell, I cherish that smell. And just take things moment by moment, day by day. Whatever little senses that are still working, can I at least appreciate their work and be happy that, okay, the time has come to go, maybe sooner or later the body will disintegrate and I go from a peaceful manner. I think that's what a person who is completely bedridden can do. Beyond that, one can't expect much.
This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. One has obviously heard these concepts earlier, but very difficult to apply them practically. And it's so surprising that while the topic of death seems morose to begin with, when we are starting to engage with it, if we go to the depth of thought or even conversation, one realizes, like when you said this final few lines on what a person on his deathbed, or even just ailing can do, is to enjoy, is to be happy about things that work within his or her body, is to really relish living till the time one has to die. I think it's a really remarkable mindset to have and worth pursuing. Even as one thing I told myself right away was that, do I do this enough? Do I really thank and focus on things that are working within my body, even if I do not have any ailment or if I am not bedridden so far? Uh, and it's a good practice to have. It might bring a sense of gratitude. It might bring a sense of uh, joy for no reason at all. because the reason itself is being alive and healthy. You do not need an additional thing that I got to eat this, it's tasty enough. No, the sense of taste exists. That itself is joyful. So far.
Yes, yes, yes. I had COVID and I lost my sense of smell and taste. And then I understood, okay, at least the digestive system is working, I can still eat. Even though I don't know what I'm eating. So, yes, it does build gratitude into you. And I think that's something that is going to come out. Hopefully, it has come out of this COVID situation is that when nothing much is happening in life, that is happiness. You don't need to search for some eventful things and go and search and create some happy, special, artificial moments of going to a movie or a picnic or anything. Just living life as is, without a lot of drama. That is happiness. I think that is something people have realized in this COVID time.
Yeah.
कुछ नहीं हो रहा तो अच्छा है जिंदगी. कुछ हो रहा है तो भाई आजकल बस प्रॉब्लम ही हो रहा है.
I think that is a good point that I would want to end the conversation with, because it's I cannot call it's a high considering the kind of point we are making, but yeah, it's a happy place to sit and ponder over what are things that we can do and be thankful for, even as we age or even as we have different kind of ailments hitting us, even in a time like COVID. So thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you.